to the meeting of the Winnsboro City Council. Let the record show that a quorum of City Council is present. Notice of this meeting was posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. I hereby call this meeting of the Winnsboro City Council to order at 5:31 p.m. We would like to welcome all citizens, visitors, guests. If you have not done so, please sign in at the podium in the back of the lobby. Please silence all cell phones, and if you need to take a call, please step outside. If you would like to address the council, please fill out a speaker card and turn it in to the city secretary, Ms. Angie. Speaker cards are also located on the podium in the lobby. Please, we ask that you do not speak from your seat. You may speak when called upon, and when you are called upon, please approach the podium, speak into the microphone, and state your name and address clearly. And at that time, you'll have 3 minutes. Okay. Okay, at this time, let's move to number 2, public comments. This is the time for anyone in the public, if they wish to address the City Council on any subject. However, the Texas Open Meeting Act prohibits the City Council from discussing issues where the public has not been given a 72-hour notice. Issues raised may be referred to the city staff for research and possible future action. Comments are going to be limited to 3 minutes. Do we have anyone? Yes, sir.
Joe Stokes, 2441 County Road 4200. I visited the library since we have a new librarian, and I'm really glad we're back having it open for everyone. It's a big asset for our town.
Well, thank you, Mr. Stokes. Anyone else? You can come in and sit down. Okay, if there's no further public comments, we'll move on to number 3. 3.1, consider resolution number 2022-44, authorizing submission of a grant to the officer of the governor. Let's see. This resolution 2021-03 was approved in February of 2021 and submitted to the office of the governor. Resolution number 2022-44 amends the existing grant submission, designating the city administrator, Mr. Ronnie Knight, as authorized official as opposed to a named individual.
I have some comments.
Yes, ma'am.
I believe the new resolution that's being proposed, 2022-44, does not name an individual. It just says city administrator. However, one concern that I have, let me move my note down. This resolution amends an existing grant submission. So it would amend the previous resolution, which was 2021-03, and in which that resolution named an individual. There are a couple of differences between the two resolutions. One of them is that the previous one states all the whereases as the Winnsboro City Council. This resolution is saying the city of Winnsboro. Not sure if that really makes a difference. My main concern is that I believe that this resolution should include a whereas stating that it is an amendment to or replaces the previous resolution, just so that there aren't two resolutions out there floating and used inappropriately when applying for this grant.
Councilman, Chris, this is probably on me. When this came about, the grant that was approved last year was for an evidence tracking system that basically the police department has been tracking all of our criminal evidence on paper and big notebooks and stuff. We're way behind the times. I put in for a grant for a software and a barcoding system that allows for much better tracking for prosecution of it. That's the backstory. That was approved last year.
That's February 21?
Yes, that was one that was approved last year and everything. When I put in for grants, they go through a long process, so the grant period of actually using the funds for the grant and then being available once we are actually awarded the grant actually starts around October 1 for fiscal year 2022. So when we got approved at 100% funding and all for it, but when we start to order the stuff, everything has to go through what's called the authorized official, and on these grants, authorized official is the city administrator. When we go to do what's called a financial status report, that has to be done by the authorized official or the financial director. At the time that this actually started and we were ready to order, we had neither of those positions. So I called the state and said, hey, this is what's happened. What do we need to do? And they said, well, have you got one hired? I said, we have one that's going to be coming in interim, but we do not have one that's going to be hired. They said, my recommendation, since you can get this swiftly done with just an authorized official who basically can do everything with this grant, is to just name authorized official as the city administrator without a name beside it. That way whoever is in that position can be the authorized official with simply showing proof that they are in that position without having to write a new resolution. That in itself would require a new resolution. They sent me basically a sample resolution. I printed that off and put in City of Winnsboro and City Administrator with no name on it and submitted that to the City Secretary. So that resolution that you see, unless Angie has significantly changed it, basically is a stock one from the governor's office that says this is what's acceptable. I think it would be perfectly fine for us to change smaller things on it, the whereases. However, we are getting close to actually getting this software in and needing to pay for it, and we can't get any money until this resolution is signed and the deadline is coming up.
Okay, so is this resolution going to replace the one that was approved in February? And if so, then it should be.
As for the grant, yes, ma'am, but as far as for the city of Winnsboro, I think it will necessarily be in addition to rather than a replacement of, simply because at the time that it was put in for, that was the council at that time and that was the city administrator that approved it. I wouldn't want it necessarily to be replaced because if something comes up 5 years from now when the software is outdated.
So is it an amendment to the February resolution?
I believe that would be a correct assessment.
Could we add the whereas this being an amendment to?
Well, I mean, it would just be a simple line at the top stating that it amends resolution, the other one.
I believe that would be perfectly fine. The verbiage, as far as I'm concerned, doesn't really affect mine as much as it is the timeline of just if we could add that possibly this evening and get it signed off on as long as we don't have to wait for next month's meeting.
But I would be in agreement with that. It's just that, there's all kinds of people handling these grants.
Absolutely.
And someone may pick up this resolution and it may be tied up because the person named in this resolution is no longer with the city.
That was my point, yes, ma'am. I agree. If something comes along later and they go to Mr. Knight and he's like, I didn't do that. What says right here you did? Well, that's actually an amendment to the original one of a different council and different city administrator.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I make the motion the council approve resolution number 2022-44 with the added verbiage at the top stating this is an amendment to the previous resolution 2021-03.
I second that motion.
All in approval?
Aye.
None opposed. Okay, thank you, Chris, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's go to 3.2, fee schedule revisions.
Stacy's making her way
coming
up here.
Stacy's coming.
I'm telling
We need to see her smiling face for this.
So this is something we do, I don't know, pretty often, but we're already prepping for the 2022 farmers market season, so we're making some amendments. The first one that y'all will see is actually a removal of a fee for that Bowery Bazaar event that we attempted last year. It was kind of one of those, let's see how this goes, and it wasn't very sustainable is what we figured out. And so we're just taking that completely out because that was a completely separate event from the farmers market. And then adjusting the rates for this season for farmers market. As y'all see, that has gone up. That is something that all of our vendors have been made aware of, the ones who are returning and obviously new ones that are coming in. Those are, kind of, we've given them that preview that this could be happening. I can answer any questions about that. The kind of cut and dried is that we've got a new space, we've got a lot of expenses, so we got a lot of wish list items even by these vendors who are more than happy to pay a little extra, most of them, to get closer to fans and restrooms and all those things that we would like to see out there. So that was part of the thought there. Also, we've been one of the lowest cost markets, even of the really little ones, much less for the size we're at now. If you look around, we're about a fifth of the cost of most markets, even with this increase. So if y'all have questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I just have one question, under the swimming pool parties, is that only for the pool?
That's not,
None of those are being changed.
Oh, okay.
Basically, all the fees are tied together in this fee schedule. That's how we arranged it to where it would be easier than changing like ordinances under the farmer's market. We can just change the fees within the fee schedule. The only ones being adjusted are those that are highlighted on that single page. So the removal of the bazaar and then the increase to the farmer's market.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you, Stacy.
Madam Mayor, I move approval of the requested changes to the fee schedule
Yes.
by the Parks and Recreation Board as presented.
Second.
All in approval?
Aye.
Okay, thank you again, Stacy. Okay, 3.3, consider projects for general obligation bond election. Okay, Jake, you're up.
This is in response to the December 9th meeting where the petition against the certificates of obligation had to be dealt with. The council took no action, gave direction to the staff, and would like to possibly seek a general obligation bond election this May. So we re-looked at projects, re-looked at the numbers and everything. I've got a new list to look at of what was requested. You can see that bottom one on there was something that I don't think that the council wanted to do. Staff thinks we need the space with City Hall and everything, so just something else to consider. But once again, this is a discussion item. We're not calling a bond election. This is just a new list with some new pricing that we would like to discuss. So I'll just kind of go through it line by line. One of the items on the CO package was, and I will say, for everyone's knowledge, every one of these items, when it goes on the ballot, it's an individual item.
Yes.
This is not a package. So the voters, the citizens of Winnsboro would have opportunity to say, yes, I would like to see Market Street renovated, the phase 2 portion. I love going to the farmer's market. Yes, let's go ahead and give them the money to do that. So keep that in mind as we're talking about this. But Market Street renovation, the number's the same. We redid the budgets I did with our 2 design firms, and we did very well in phase 1, what we anticipated. Even seeing some of the unforeseen conditions that we saw as we performed that phase 1 work, we were able to keep that number the same of what it was. So that includes concrete paved surface on Market Street and including the alley from Main to Market. Utility relocations, that's a big one. We've got all those overhead lines that are kind of an interference, interferes with possibility of a future building there at the Market Street lots. A lot of utilities that need reworked while we're in there, while we've got the road surface tore up. So that's a big number there. And then we've still got additional landscaping and some art pieces. We've got the shade structure. Everybody's seen the videos and everything. So it would be to take that and make it look like designed.
Can I ask a
Question.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
So on phase 2, is there a phase 3 after that, or is that it?
Not unless you guys
I
come
mean,
up
I
with
don't,
something
that's
else.
why, to be honest,
We
I
could
can't
put a-
remember.
We could put a
So
sky
that would be
bridge
the
over the street,
completion
and we
of
could call
Market
it
Street.
phase, yes, as currently designed. That would be the,
The final deal?
yes.
Okay,
As
all right.
long as no one else has any ideas.
We're not gonna let anybody have
I have
that.
a
No, I'm
question.
just kidding.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
On utility relocation and upgrades, wasn't there some utility work done underneath the street when,
The only thing that went in phase 1 was the irrigation lines. So we tapped the main water line, put in an irrigation meter, and ran irrigation, as well as the electrical lines that go to the tree wells that have the uplighting in the trees. But no real utility work was done there.
okay. And just one comment that I would like to make is that I don't recall any of the council, or I could actually speak for myself, seeing the actual design on Market Street. And I would like to, on these projects, if you're going to present a design to us, present the design that is going to be done.
Okay,
I had no idea that fountain was going to be where it is.
right.
And it's caused a lot of questions by citizens and comments, and, which is good that we hear, but it's not good that this council doesn't see the actual design work of any project.
Okay. I was unaware that members of the council had not seen some of those renderings. We're actually very fortunate to have something that detailed on a project like that, and I was unaware of that.
Thank you.
Okay, next.
Let me ask a question
sir.
about the utility relocations.
Yes, sir.
Elaborate on that a little bit. I mean, obviously, there used to be a building that burned down,
Yes.
that where it replaced, it existed with the utilities where they are now. So where is this need for the relocation of utilities coming from?
It has to do with, aesthetically, the design is to get those overhead lines underground. It's just kind of a spider web mess up there. So the biggest one is the electrical. What would happen is there would be 2 small pad mount transformers put in the alley, on the Main Street side of that alley, and everything would come underground and feed to what needs refed on Market Street. And I have that all coordinated with SWEPCO as far as what needs to happen there. And that's the big one. We have some work to do on the telecommunication lines to get those underground. It's not nearly as complicated as what the electrical is. But everything that's underground needs work. We've got gas lines that run through the alley. We've got water lines that need replaced. Those are cast iron lines in Market Street. So the utilities is a big portion of it.
What portion of relocating the utilities is of this 1,115,000? What portion is that account for?
That portion is, to redo all that work it's about a quarter of the project. It's $271,125. And that includes electrical, communications, gas. There is a sewer line that needs sleeved, water lines that we would want to replace while we've got the street opened up, and then a small contingency for unknowns once we get everything opened up.
When you say open up, you're talking about opening up Market Street
Yes.
again?
No.
Yes.
Not opening it to traffic or anything.
No, I
like that,
mean,
just, you know,
Yeah.
Yes, we have
enhance
it. Dig up
further,
the
further
streets,
excavation. Yes, sir. So, take for example, the alley, we would tear all that paving up, and that would allow for us to get all that underground. It's such a small area, you wouldn't want to open cut it and bore to the new pedestal set to feed the existing meters, so. It's very intensive. It won't be fun.
could you break it down by each listing here for us, just so we can kind of get an idea of this 1,115,000, how much?
I don't
is
have it
each?
broke down into those. I can give you just some general numbers on, off of the budget, but let's get a big one here. What we need for the 6-inch concrete pavement that would resurface the street once it's demoed is $124,350. That's budgeted at $75 a square yard.
So you're actually talking about tearing up all the street that was already done
I
on
think
Market, is it?
engineering wise, we've got it figured out where we don't have to tear up the whole street. It'll actually overlay over the top of what's there. So there's opportunity to do that.
Okay.
It seems like this whole process, it sounds like it would have been a lot more efficient for phase 2 to have been phase 1 and phase 1 to have followed.
We agree, and that was very difficult design-wise. It's just that we had received a grant that paid for that from the Texas Commission on the Arts. And it took a lot of steps to be able to think forward ahead to, okay, let's get these landscape items in, and then we can come back. Yes, even our design firm said, wow, this is kind of backwards, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But we did have opportunity at this grant to be able to do that.
Logical progression of bureaucracy, I understand now.
Sometimes you do what you can do with the money you can get, yes. Okay, any more questions on Market Street renovation?
I just have one more.
Yes.
So from beginning to finish, what's your time frame? Rough guess, I know. Really rough
When we
guess.
bid it out, I'm gonna push, a lot of it's gonna hinge on the utilities, but I'm gonna push for 6 months, and we'll have to do some, when we think about it, we'll have to do some phased work, on the street at first, and then the south half last, we'll have to work through that once we select a contractor.
Anyone else on Market Street? Okay.
Farmers market, restrooms, and stage structure, that's always been, once again, I assume everybody has seen the renderings and all that, and that's kind of the concept that we're going for. Accessible concrete sidewalks, that's probably the restrooms and the sidewalks are definitely the biggest need out there. We have decided on putting in an additional pavilion because they're bursting at the seams with vendors, and there's no space. And every season there's more and more people wanting to come sell their farm goods, so it's a good problem to have. And then we've got landscape and side amenities, and I know our farmers market manager has some really ingenious ideas on that. So
And-
questions on farmers market?
And the cost of that has gone up from 475,000
Yes.
to,
And
507,
and what that was to add the additional pavilion.
yes.
I know that I've been out there a couple times to the farmer's market when it was really windy. And I think that the vendors would really appreciate some kind of backdrop.
We actually
behind
do. Yes, we
the
actually have
stations.
purchased something that works very well. You've seen one of our vendors on their own purchased one of those wind screens that had the small holes. We got those for the entire back portion of that.
That's good.
And we're just waiting to put them up when the time, you know, we don't want to leave it out when the market's not in use. So before the market starts, we'll have those put up for all the vendors, customers, everyone.
Thank you. I think that's important too.
Okay, yeah, but they're in my office right now, so.
Good.
one
It
other-
doesn't come out of this budget.
No.
One other question on the farmer's market. How much money did they bring in? And Stacy might could answer that better. How much money does the farmer's market, as far as fees and stuff like that, bring in each year?
Fees last year and all of our fundraising, we sell t-shirts, hats, that kind of thing, was around $7,500 for last season.
Anyone else have a question on the farmer's market? Parking.
Okay, the parking lot, this is in the area of Broadway and Walnut. Gets heavy use by the customers at La Conchita for sure. But yeah, this is a concrete parking service. I've got money in there to put up street lights, which when you consider things like that, even with the farmer's market budget, the light fixtures that we use are very expensive, you know, including the drill chap pier, the bolts, the light. It's about 15 grand with the service per each one of those decorative lights. So those are not cheap, but
How many of those lights are there?
I figured for three of those lights, sir. And we have, when we did the sidewalks that came down from Franklin and Elm and then turned the corner at Walnut there, we put in a new 200 amp service, and it's right there by the parking lot. So we don't have that additional cost there. We can just come out from that panel and be able to service these other lights as part of the project. So I got this. I literally talked to that contractor that did that work and had them give me a proposal on what it would cost to do that parking lot. $190,000 is what it was for concrete landscaping. Now, I also have engineering cost in there. I'm a big believer that if you're going to do anything paved, you do a geotech report and you have an engineer give recommendations before you do it. I've seen too many parking lots go bad really fast. So, yes, $350,000 is the number on that lot, and we'll do our best. You know, I've got a little bit of money in there just for some landscaping. I mean, you've seen around, Stacy's been doing some kind of xeriscaping things, so we'll have some islands and things. So it looks decent as well.
You have a question?
Well, parking is a big issue
Yes.
downtown.
Mhm.
And I think it's important that we get this done ASAP.
Agreed.
Is there any way that instead of putting this as a project here under this group of funding it out of our budget? Maybe doing part of it, maybe doing the paving first this year and next year doing the lighting?
We could look
Have you
into
looked,
that.
have you looked at that?
We could. I mean, that's still a pretty significant number
Because
to
look,
go in there and do it. But are you talking about this current budget year and using fund balance essentially? Okay, not waiting till next fiscal year. Okay.
right, because this is, to me, this is number one,
Okay.
should be done.
Okay.
But do we really have to wait until it goes to election in May? Or can we look at our budget and say, hey, we've got some money here, we can do the pavement.
Yes.
Next year's budget, we can do the lighting. So would
We
you
could look-
consider
yes.
looking at that?
Yes.
Jacob, may I interview you?
Yes, sir.
Anything a little bit? Mayor, we don't have, I haven't talked to our, Joey earlier on, Jacob, and we don't have the money in the budget. Now, y'all can authorize us to do it, and we'll do it, but there's not that much money.
But there's a fund balance that you know, or different areas of the, I've forgotten what it's called,
You're talking about
reserves or
adding
something
a
like that,
budget
or,
line item.
or building, you know, maintenance.
I was just thinking about that particular, if you stay within that area there, there's no money budgeted for that. If you opt to, do something else with the money that you budget for other areas, then we could shift money, but there's just not that much.
Right, you'd have to make a budget adjustment and move money around, but look and see where it could come
And I
from.
hope we have the leftovers at the end of the fiscal year. Okay, we can look into that. Once again, that one's something we could get on it quick once it passed. I know there's a process, to certify the elections and things like that. Mr. Cunningham would have to begin selling bonds and things and get all that, the financial services set up, but it would be something that we could do fairly quickly.
Do you have the exact size of that parking lot?
I did
Rough
at one.
guess?
I did it one time. Let me see if I've got it in my notes.
I'm not
here.
sure how far it goes to Lock and Cheetahs, and I don't know how far it goes over to.
Well, there's an alley there, is there not?
Yeah, there's an alley on
Yeah,
the.
there's an alley.
There is that alley.
On the
yes.
west side and the
Yes.
north side.
Yes,
That's why I'm just trying to figure out what the dimensions are.
kind of like an L shape.
Because then you have the place going in, and for lack of better words, the old bake shop.
The coffee shop.
Are the alleyways being maintained in the plan for the parking lot,
No,
or are
sir.
they
It's-
being
it's within-
eliminated?
It's within the boundaries of the lot, but we could look at expanding into those alleyways. But this is strictly within the boundaries within the lot.
So the alleyways will continue to be present?
That's correct, yes. That's another one of those things where, we have significant utilities in those alleys that would also need to be reworked if we were gonna newly pave and expand into those areas.
You're not going to be curbing that parking lot, are you?
I don't, yes, we probably will end up with some curbing, yes.
But we'll still have entrances and exits
Yes,
off
sir.
of that curbing, such as the alley and so on and so forth?
Yes, sir.
I got you.
Could you just give me the lot size, just whenever?
Yes, just let me see in my notes if I've got it. Let's see. 1,340 square yards, approximately.
Thank you.
Any other
Any
questions on the
Questions on
parking?
parking?
Was the idea of going with asphalt at any time considered for this instead of a concrete parking lot?
No, it was always considered concrete. That is
Would
the
the
bigger-
asphalt hold up?
Yeah,
the-
that was, thank you.
It's one of those things, there's so much turning that happens in a parking lot, getting into the spaces and all the turning. It's just, the buildings I've built over the last decade, everyone goes with the concrete in a parking lot.
Approximately how many cars are we talking about that could park there?
I figured it up. We've had some talk about some other ideas, but I did a quick layout and figured we could at least get 25 cars over there.
Wow.
And probably could do a little better than that. Maybe we could add a couple more. But there's some other ideas that have been kicked around. But yes,
We're in Texas, we have big trucks.
that's true.
They take a little bit bigger spot.
Just a question for you, that coffee shop that's being developed on the corner
Yes, sir.
and her drive-through, she's going to come through the back of her store and then make a left to, are we going to come up to that? Is she going to pave that or
I don't know.
keep up with the same consistency of the concrete that you're talking about?
I don't know what the boundary is, exactly where it is.
I see.
So there's a little bit of room, but it seems like if that's what she's trying to do, that's a tight corner.
Yes,
to
it
make,
is.
To me.
And that cost would be on her, not ours.
Yes.
That's correct. That's her
Most
property.
certainly would
Yes.
be.
I just wanted to clarify that the idea of paying for this out of our current budget and next year's budget is just my comments and have not been fully represented by the council.
Anybody else parking? Okay,
So
how about- Go
that
ahead.
would be a matter of bringing up in, say, the next council meeting if you wanted to float that idea,
It's a budget adjustment.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, to do a budget adjustment like that, you're looking at dipping into fund balance. And dipping into fund balance of $350,000 is nothing I would consider.
Well, the 300, it wouldn't be 350 if you broke it up into two different years, this budget years.
I think one thing, though, that Jacob is thinking too is if you break it up where you do the pavement one year and the lighting next year, you're going to have more work to do the lighting because you can actually lay the conduit and the lighting posts and fixtures before you pour the pavement,
And
the
that's-
parking surface.
That's minimal cost to put in raceways and, you know, depending on where these lights would be located exactly, you can put them in islands, leave a block out in the paving.
Maybe we just need one big lot in the middle.
Have an extension cord in your house. That'll work. Jacob, where you had related to about going out and getting fixtures, the parking light fixtures and all that, the problem you had, I mean, I would rather see it done now than wait till next year, and you'll may have that problem even higher than next year, meaning cost-wise, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes, sir. Could have that problem.
Anything else?
Okay.
Okay, let's move on to the animal shelter.
Next, this is a request from Mr. Parrish. I know it's the consensus of a lot of other council members. Mr. Corning, several months back, he got with an artist architect and kind of drew up a simple floor plan idea. She met with both Amanda and Angelica and threw their ideas around of what kind of space that they really need. So she made a rough sketch of what was there, and in the end, basically, it would double the size of the current
Yes.
facility approximately, which I think is really needed. A lot of that's going to be office space for our animal control officers. There is an extreme need for more cat space. The current animal shelter really doesn't have true isolation, so we could build that into this new addition. We could do some upgrades just exterior to make it look, you know, instead of just like a storage shed like it does now. So I think it would be a really good project. But anyway, for those, these are just basic square foot numbers. The renovation to the existing building, I've got it $125 a square foot. If you walk into not the kennel area, but the other area, you know, there's a lot of problems. There's been leaky roofs, you know, things are damaged. It's not laid out correctly. The washer's over here, the dryer's over here. The washrooms is a mess. So, you know, I can see that maybe we would put the new wash assemblies in the new addition, turn that more into storage and pantry space. So we've got opportunity to renovate that, as well as do some upgrades to the kennel area. The mechanical systems need replaced. We basically can't use 7 of the kennels because it just doesn't work. The mechanical systems don't function. There's some old garage bay doors that are back there. That would need to be walled up with CMU. We also have opportunity to, I think we can add on a little bit and get us another row of kennels and add another 7 if need be. Once again, this is all contingent on sitting down with an architect and getting a good design. But the new addition I've got priced, which like I said would basically double the space. Going rate for these kind of commercial buildings right now is about $260 a square foot construction cost. And then I've got soft cost in there for architect and engineering fees and furnishings and equipment. So that total is $956,000 to do additions and renovations to our animal shelter.
And what would be the total square footage when complete?
I've got it at approximately, I think we're right now we're at 1,800, and I think I've got 2,200 in there.
I think that's
Trying to gain a little more than double, but safe to say right now, I think with what we've kind of got sketched up, I think, you know, the true, but I've got a number in there to maybe get a little bit more footage.
Okay, so just so that I understand, so this is using the existing cement structure with it
Yes.
being renovated.
Yes,
The little building would go away,
yes, ma'am.
and it would be the double in the size of the current cement structure now.
Yes, so it would essentially come to the north with an additional space. Probably try to keep it in line on the roadside with the existing building and then build it back that way. But it's not just that one shed. There's plenty of other sheds
Well,
that
yeah,
are being
well,
utilized
yes.
back there that we hope to be able to get rid of with this project.
And the Winnsboro shelter is considered a no-kill shelter?
I'm
Yes.
not quite familiar, but I don't think,
Almost.
I don't
It's not quite
think-
a no-kill shelter, but it is a very minimal kill shelter at this point.
Well, I know there's some circumstances, of course, but, okay.
And the office structure would be separate, like
No,
it
would
is
be-
now?
It would be, yes, it would be within the new addition, the offices.
Connected to the shelter itself now?
Yes.
Okay. I've had a few citizens come to me and say, gee, we'd really like to have, would be great to have a dog park. There are people that, you know, have dogs that don't really want to be out, especially older women, that don't want to be out walking their dogs. And so the question came up, would it be possible to also have a dog park in this renovations? I know we have land out there, and all it would require to me would be fencing and water disbursements and then the little stands for the bags to pick up the deposits.
That is a very nice way you put that, Ms. Jones.
Let's make sure there's gloves in the thing.
Right. So I'm wondering if there would be a possibility of looking into that and seeing if we could add that to.
That budget for 260 a square foot as far as construction cost, would include exterior improvements. This isn't just the building. This is including, we would do some sort of landscaping. That number would cover that there. So we could look at doing that. I don't know how big a dog park is. I have 400 pounds of dog at home amongst our four, so they need a pretty big piece of land to be on, but.
And a lot of gloves.
I would also add, Joan, because we've had people interested in a dog park, obviously approaching the parks people. I think because it's an ideal spot, because I like the idea of the animal shelter being able to use that. I think there's some legality issues of being an open public park as a dog park and the animal shelter being able to use it. Because you're talking about animals, we don't know where they're coming from, even that whole quarantine idea within the shelter, that crossover may not even be possible. I haven't looked into it enough because it hasn't been the funds for it. But it was a concern of ours with looking at doing it there. Is that, okay, if we make it a dog park, it may not be able to be used by the animal shelter, if you understand what I'm saying.
Right, but it would be available to the public to
Right.
use, right?
Right.
Or maybe, would it be possible to put it near where the community garden is?
Right, there's a lot of space out there. It's just a matter of funding and what exactly we want in it.
Okay.
Shade, I would say, would be.
Since there are citizens that are asking, could we just have a look at it?
Yes.
Bring back some information to us?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions?
a Civic Center renovation. This is just basically upgrades to the Civic Center. We're doing one of them right now. We're hanging the toilet partitions currently. It's been retiled, so it looks really nice. It's going to be a big improvement.
So we can
to
take that off.
building. So, no, this is, I'll go through the list now, but it's, you know, this is just kind of upgrades to our current,
Go
we
ahead.
would like to see it, everyone would like to see it modernized, I guess, the
Okay.
Civic Center. So, interior and exterior finish upgrades. So in that number, I've got money to, you know, replace all the batten board siding that's in there with a nice tile product on the walls.
How long is that that's currently in there?
I don't know.
Because I know, how long, I mean, it wasn't, I say that long ago, I've lived here forever, so I don't, not that long ago, it might have been 10 years that they redid the inside. I don't remember.
But yes, I have money in there for that. I have a new accessible restroom. You know, there was really nothing we could do with the current restrooms to make them truly accessible. So we would need to add a true accessible restroom for the public there. We would have to had deleted a couple of the fixtures in each one of the bathrooms and moved toilets. It wasn't conducive to do that during this. But if we add one, then it'll be much simpler. So, but that is something we need at that facility, is an accessible restroom. AV upgrades, what I've got in there for AV upgrades is, I spoke with a local contractor and got a quote. We kicked around some ideas of what to do between, you know, video screens, what we needed to do to upgrade the sound system, recording equipment. You know, if there ever does happen, I mean, that has been suggested in the past that, you know, in certain circumstances, we could have council meetings out there. But so I got with them and a local contractor, got a budget put together for that with some electrical cost as well. But also as part of that, if you've ever been to a function at the Civic Center, it's very difficult to hear. The sound bounces everywhere. Somebody's talking on the mic, you can't hear them, but you can hear the person back in the kitchen talking. It just doesn't work. So I've got money in there to hire an acoustician. It's only about $5,000 to get them to come look at your facility and come up with a plan. You know, and then from there we look at adding acoustical panels, sound baffles, things like that that might help out with the sound for those events. So I've got money in there for that. What else is on here? And then the kitchen upgrades. I was actually a local business that opened here recently this year, a restaurant, and I got together with them and their kitchen equipment supplier and kind of put together some pricing of maybe what we would want. That's still to be determined as far as what that really needs to serve and what function that needs to be. But that kitchen really does need upgraded. So this is basically just a modernization of that Civic Center. And any questions on it?
Okay, so I'll go first. On the interior, does that also include something having to do with the stage?
Yes, there's just a interior finish budget. I think for sure we need, one of the things that would have to be done, we don't have a ramp up to the stage. Now there is, I have measured it, and yes, we can get an accessible ramp up to that stage within the footprint of the auditorium that I think will be non-intrusive. So I do have things like that worked into this budget.
I've been to a lot of events out there at the Civic Center, and the stage is horrible. I mean,
Yes.
you've been there, you know.
Yes.
It's dark, it's gloomy, it needs lights, it needs curtains, I think that's one of the reasons why the Civic Center is not really utilized as much as it could be, because the stage is pointless.
I think that's I think that's what everybody wants to see happen, something that this facility would get used more often. And it does, it gets used more than you think, between, weddings and quinceañeras and just on and on. It really does get used, but a modernization would be nice.
Stacy again, I'm sorry, I cut to you unprepared. Do we know about how much the Civic Center made last year in rental?
I don't know. I mean, COVID definitely knocked the wind out of the sails in 2020, and I think people found some other places that were bigger, things like that. They definitely came back. But I'm like Jay, you would be surprised, and I really, even just these restrooms, it's night and day. I think it's going to get a really good response. You think about prom. How long has it been since they've held prom, Winnsboro prom in this city? And it's because there's not any place nice enough to do it. And that's more what we want it to be, I guess, personally, what I see it being. I let people in out there all the time to kind of see the facility, whether they're looking for a spot for a wedding, for a party, whatever. And I think we lose some potentials because of what they see. They see the stage, they see some of the finishes and think, yeah, we could probably do a little better than this. We're affordable as far as the building goes, but it doesn't have all the amenities that some people need and want. But no, we could definitely find that for you.
Of course.
A total there, what that brought in.
So,
Sound system, you're too hot.
sorry. So, in regards to the commercial kitchen. So when you have spoke with people, have they made, I know a lot of people cater events there. So have they expressed the desire? Of course, we know it needs to be updated. There's without a doubt the kitchen needs to be updated. But I guess the question I'm asking you, does it just need to be updated in as 2 new ovens, a new counter? I mean, all that has to be replaced. Or is there a true need for a commercial kitchen?
I think that could be argued either way. It obviously needs modernized, and if you're going to get a nice new oven, why not get one that's a commercial grade? That is a step up, obviously. What I would point out, that we've thought about is looking at this in the past, is you got for an extra stream of income that you can rent that kitchen out, let somebody come in there, make their any type of food, if it's made in that kitchen and packaged well, they can then come out and peddle. You see that at larger markets. We can't do that here because they don't have a place to create that. That's licensed, and as an individual, it's expensive to get done to your own kitchen.
I guess I'm looking at cost versus,
Right.
if we build it, will they come?
This is still a little unknown.
I mean, I guess that's where you have to juggle it. If you invest $400,000, does that mean we're going to have 4 times as many rentals? We're still in the COVID. I mean, that's why I'm just kicking around in my head. That's the questions. If we build it, will they utilize that space?
Right. And I think maybe votes from the public will chime in on that of how much does this matter. Obviously, you don't know how much each thing is going to get. But I can tell you, I'll use an example, and I've talked about it before, of the swimming pool. The improvements we've done out there, I cannot even express how much more exponential the rentals have been for parties, because it's a nicer space. And a lot of cities are letting theirs kind of go downhill.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have questions? Dare I say the next one, street?
Street improvements. Okay, so the original certificate of obligation package had in it money to purchase road equipment, meaning asphalt laydown machines, just the works, okay? With a little bit of money in there to start redoing roads through our Public Works Department. There would still need to be a continuation of more money coming in every year just for them to be able to continue resurfacing roads.
Of course.
So this wasn't a one and done kind of thing. Roads are never one and done. So anyway, this is an option. This list came from our Public Works team. This is their list of what they would like as the maintainers of the roads here in town, that this is the list of what they would like to see redone. It also includes some essential water lines that would need to be replaced before we did that. But the process here is what we've done on these last couple projects with our TDA grants, is we go in, mill the street up, scarify, cement treat it, compact it, regrade it, and put the asphalt back down. This is the real way to redo a road if you're going to do it. So that being said, this list did come from Public Works. I know that number is very large, but I worked with KSA engineers, and we put this budget together based on each individual road listed here. So, questions on this street improvements possibility?
For myself, just as I review this, some of these I can just go down and say, yes, 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 yes. I mean, without a doubt.
Everybody in town can do that on several
There
of
is
those.
some I find questionable, to be honest. I would think in my thought process, there would be roads that would need it more than some of these. I would question a couple of these. So I guess that's where I stand on this. Of course, the road, street improvements, of course, that's, without a doubt, they're needed. I mean, that's a no-brain question at all. I think on some of these, I do have a question of whether or not that's the best way to spend our money at this time. And then there's others that I think, without a doubt, would reach total agreement with by everyone. So I think that's kind of where I'm looking at this now.
Are you getting rid of South Post Oak?
No. It's just, I mean, okay,
This is, once again, this is just, this is what I would call the priority list from our
I
public works
understand.
guys, that this was in order. You know,
Right,
this is the way they see it as they're doing things, so.
and, but, I mean, I'm just, Post Oak without a doubt. Myrtle Street from Post Oak to the high school without a doubt. There's, like I said, there's some you can just go down and say yes, yes, yes. But then I'm thinking, okay, and I'll just throw it out there, Dela Cruz Drive. I guess I look at it that on Post Oak, you have people use that road every single day, multiple times a day. Dela Cruz Drive, nothing off the citizens that live there, but how many people actually use that road every day, multiple times a day?
Very
I
true.
guess that's my question on some of these that are listed here.
And y'all feel free to give direction. I mean, we can take streets out. We can, this is, I will say that I didn't say earlier, we have until the 18th of February. That's the drop dead date to call a bond election
Yes.
in May. So we do have limited time, and this was it's very, very educated, this budget with all this, but it was a push to even get us to this point, from middle of December until now with the holidays, COVID, everything, so.
Well, I would have to disagree with the Delray Heights addition.
Just
Those
use that as an
streets,
example.
well, if you've not driven out there lately, drive out there. It's bad.
You can lose a car.
It's like driving through Louisiana. So, sorry. There's a whole subdivision out there that have lots for sale, and if I'm looking at a lot to build a house on, I go out there and I lose the front end of my truck in the road. I'm not going to buy a lot out there. Do we want that tax generating property to sit there vacant because the roads are in such poor condition? Nobody will buy a house out there, buy a lot out there.
Okay, well then, I'll play devil's advocate here. I will ask, why are those roads in such bad condition?
Can I chime in on that?
Sure.
The subgrade was never
Thank you.
installed like it should have been. There was, I think it was basically, you look at it, it was slicked off, and they ran over it a couple times with a tractor and paved it, is what it seems
Down
to
an inch
be.
and a half, yeah. Can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Let's keep it straight here on the paper. All these Was it 13 streets?
15. I believe.
16, or how many you've got?
15. I had to make
Right.
sure. I was like,
15,
we've
thank you.
been looking at 15
What kind of
streets
time
for the
frame?
last month.
Are you saying you could do that in 5 years? Are you saying that in 6?
I
Are you
think,
saying it in 3?
I think pushing it, I think we could group some of these streets, you know, and depending on that, I think we could also save some money out of these budgets for each one. But, you know, we could look at doing all the streets around the ISD, you know, and kind of lumping that in there. I think, like you say, I think those are very heavily trafficked.
Yes.
I think we need to focus on those. Maybe in a different time frame, you know, we go out there. Carnegie and Wheeler and Hope Lane at the park are at failure level. I mean, it's like four-wheel drive roads out there as well. So maybe we look at that. I would think realistic to push it 3 years, you know, once the bond passes, something like that. I feel
Can
pretty
you-
good about that. And we
Can I ask
we get
you
things
another question about
designed,
that?
and then we, you know, we start the work, we start looking at design of other things, but
And this is subcontractors doing this work for us.
that is correct, yes.
What would have been the time frame if we bought the equipment ourselves?
Longer than 3 years?
Hang on.
I would think that if, you know, look at how big Post Oak is, you know, and the time that, unless we hired additional staff,
There you go.
you know,
So-
then with what we've got, it would take a long time.
So that would be
to get-
probably a 5-year, 6-year program?
Oh, more than that,
Probably 10?
yes.
So this is
If we
really
could get
saving
two-
us
if we
money
could
going
get-
the way that we're going.
If we could get 2 roads done a year, I mean, and to do it right, this isn't.
That's
just-
what I'm talking
A lot
about.
of small towns, they go in and they have a horrible road and they've got an asphalt laydown machine and they just keep overlaying it until
That
it's a
happens to be
foot
true.
thick. And that's not what we want to do. We want to get the roads done right.
Okay, I have a question for Mr. Craig. What we discussed earlier about the funding of the grant, if it was approved. So in the case of the roads being done over a 3-year period, would that qualify for the grant to be funded in less than the 10 million?
I would have to visit with whoever's working on your grant, but theoretically, if you had an election, you passed all these, you'd have to issue all of them at the same time, especially if you're going to be doing it over 3 years. We issue whatever you plan to do in this next few years, let's say in one issue, and then you have the authorization to come back a few years later, issue a little more and issue a little more. Things I will remind you of again is what we can't control are interest rates when we go and borrow money and inflation on the cost of labor and
Doing the
materials between us now and that time. So if market rates went up and inflation went up, you have authorization, but you're going to be able to extract fewer dollars out of it to do this work. This is all based on current cost of money and current project costs. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I think that every citizen out there driving on the roads has their own list of which road they want to have fixed,
Yes, ma'am.
because they live on that road, or they may drive on it and fly over the bumps, you know. But I think that having our Public Works Department put together this list, it will be, it's their priority, ours as a city priority, not so much the citizens' priority, but it's a start.
We have to start somewhere.
That is
And this is where we, in addition to this, we need to have a plan to continue to maintain roads. You know, I know that Public Works has recently got a rolling compactor, you know, and that'll allow them to do bigger patches and things like that. I think it's a good thing. But we need to look into buying some seal coat equipment. That's things that we can do, is to go out and, you know, have a plan for this year. We're going to seal coat these roads and cover the cracks and, you know, stop water infiltration and things. So I think this is a good beginning to the, but once again, weigh in. I mean, if that's too much to start out with, well, maybe we do need to make some cuts. I don't know. That's up to council.
My opinion only, I don't think that's the dollar figure, as long as it's the correct streets. And you know, maybe I'm out of line on some of these, but because I do put value into what our guys have to say, because they travel every day. I guess I want to please or help, however you want to phrase it, as many people as you can on the highly traveled roads. It's, you know, if I asked everybody to give a list, I'm sure everybody would put their road on the top. So
That's what I would say.
I mean, you know, that's the whole deal. I can honestly say my road's a state highway, so I'm good. But I think no one's going to come to agreement with the list because everybody, like Ms. Jones said, is going to have their own list, their own agenda that they would think would need. I think everybody would agree to post up with Myrtle. You know, there's some that everybody would say yes, yes, yes. So I just hope that we do our due diligence in picking out the roads. And I have to say, my plan tomorrow is to drive every one of these roads because I would like to see for myself. And I would hope people in the community also would drive these roads and give us a little, you know, we don't have much time, but to give us a little bit of feedback. So, anyway, anything else?
That does increase our bottom line figure. And that's where the big increase is. We go from 1.75 previously stated up to
Yes, ma'am.
5.4.
Yes, ma'am.
But, you know, I think it's a good explanation to,
Well, we do
this
have
is
to
a
start
reason
somewhere.
why.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, let's move to City Hall and Police Improvements Expansion.
Okay, once again, this is a city staff and police department request to get more space. We've thought, there's been a lot of ideas kicked around of how to do that, you know. But anyway, we own this building and we own 101 North Main. So latest thought is we renovate, which I took about $500,000 off of that budget, the original budget for 101 North Main, and currently have it at $771,000 to do a decent renovation over there of that building. That's about $142 a square foot with architect and engineering costs included in that. That's a pretty tight budget.
And what was that figure again, 700?
771.
At $1.42.
Okay, so
142. That's good.
the improvements to 101 North Main. I struggle with that one. I'm gonna be honest, I struggle with that one. It's not to say that we don't need help with this building, but when I see the price tag here, to be honest, I think of how much would it cost to just build a new one.
For
Sell the land here, sell the business up there, build a new one. Would it be $2 million?
oh no, it would be more than that. It's $1 million just to renovate and add on to the animal shelter.
I know, but a lot of times I'm told that it's cheaper to rebuild than to go in and try to fix what's there. I've had multiple contractors tell me that.
I like new builds. I don't like remodels. They're not fun.
Well, and
So-
that's where I guess I get stuck on that is I'm putting a $2 million price tag on two old buildings. And while I'll be the first to tell you, I think the 101 North Main is a very historic building. And I think someone else could do a lot with that building. But I get choked on that one. And I'm gonna be honest, I'm gonna tell the council honest. They can totally disagree with me, and that's fine too, but I just want you to be out there. For $2 million, you know, we're taking a building that, this one, for example, that is, everyone has said, it's in bad repair, it's in, I mean, we can just go down the list of what's wrong with this building, but we're gonna sink $1 million into it to try to make it better? Or are we gonna take $2 million and go build one that's brand new and somewhere else? I mean, I guess that's where I come in, that's.
Do you have, you said a new one would cost more than these renovations. Do you have just a rough idea to meet our needs,
It'd be under 100.
what it would cost?
Just, I wish I had my phone on me. But you're looking at, you know, this renovated area is about 5,600 square feet of what I figured that needs renovated, first floor. Renovations upstairs here is about 2,500 feet with what we've got. That second floor up there that was, I've heard, was designed to be a future second floor. And then you've got the 5,400 square foot at the 101 North Main. So, you know, we're looking at we're looking at over about 12,000 square feet. That's pretty pricey.
Okay, so the one at the 101 North Main, the price tag of the $771,000, is that doing historically redoing it, or is that just? Because everyone knows if you historically redo a building,
Yeah.
it has to meet all different criteria or new architects. I mean, it's a whole nother ballgame when
Right,
you talk about
that was taking out some of that money to really restore it. You know, this is to, you know, get in, rework the interior like we need it and do some upgrades. The windows on the second floor have to be replaced. They leak like you know, not water, but just air infiltration. They, you know, it's not energy efficient. You know, we've got two of the mechanical systems we just found out don't seem to be working. So it's starting to need some of those. We had that figured in the budget anyway, but
does that building have an elevator?
it is not to code. So that is one of the bigger costs of including this building. Say we went up to the second floor to try to gain. That's not cheap.
Well, and that's also where the thought comes to mind as these buildings are not wheelchair accessible to the second floors. I mean, you have, which I'll be the first to say, I think the police department and the fire department needs first-rate places because they provide an invaluable service to Winnsboro. But do I want to redo a building, or do we want to give them a new one?
I'll take a new one.
I mean, I think we need to look at all avenues. You know, what is the truth? You know, maybe we need to split them up. Maybe we need to put the fire and police and, you know, one, kind of like you're saying now. But I just keep thinking there's another way.
Well, I'll throw this out there. Jacksonville, Texas just built a public safety complex that houses police, fire, and EMS, and their dispatch center. The price tag on it was $9 million.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I've looked at other ones around Pittsburgh PD, and they're actually not big enough for us, to be honest. And it's been anywhere between 4.8 and 9 million for something that's worth what we're talking about. Yeah.
Okay, so I've looked at Sulphur Springs because we like to compare ourselves to Sulphur Springs, even though I hate it. They take buildings and annex them, and they make office space out of them. I mean, you know, that's a feasible thing also. Let this be the fire and police, and then take a building and turn it into, we're talking office space. For the city, we need office space. And I feel sorry for the people because they're cramped in there. I totally get it. Everybody is in this building. But you're going to have to make it wheelchair accessible to upstairs. Both buildings, you're going to have to do, I'm thinking the one at North Main the 101 is going to be, I would almost guess it's totally not up to code at all. Would that be a legitimate statement or not?
I'm sure there are things that are deficient
And I'm sure this building,
in
when you
any
start,
building you renovate.
it would scare me a lot that when you start tearing this building apart, you're gonna have things that are totally gonna have to be redone and put to code. This building's how old?
I believe it was built in 81.
So you're looking at,
Correct,
you
yeah.
know, 40 years. You know, I would almost bet this building's not up to code if you go in and start trying to tear it apart and put it back together.
Do the dollar amount for renovating it, does that take that into consideration?
It's really, you go in at a square foot cost. We don't have a plan for, we know what space we need,
Right.
but we don't have a definite plan to be able to really look at. We'd have to get an architect on board. We start looking at all those issues. Renovation projects, they are difficult.
Well,
So-
at one time, there was an architect that came to council, historical person, and his price tag for renovating the 101 was 1.7 million.
Yes.
So that's
Historical
100,
style
that's
renovation,
a
yes.
million more than what you're talking about here. The other thing, too, that we have to consider is council chambers.
That is, yes.
This chamber is really crowded.
Yes,
And, you know, it's not big enough for our city.
And honestly, maybe if I kind of knew and toured, I'd be happy to go look at it. And kind of, you could tell me maybe what the thought process is. Maybe I could understand it better, and I would be more than happy to make time to do that. But I'm just concerned that the price tag for this is going to go up when we rip it apart and start putting back in new. Mr. Corning, you have redone houses and stuff. I'm sure you found instances where you thought it was going to be 40,000 and it ended up being 100. I mean, we just redid a house completely from the ground up, and what we thought was going to be, 40,000 ended up being 80. Because when we got in there and started ripping things out to get it to code, and that's just a big concern I have on this ticket. It's not that I don't think this building, I do think the police and the fire department and even the city workers that are housed here do need a good facility, but I'm just concerned that when we get in and start tearing this one down to redo it, we're going to find a hornet's nest, and it's going to be twice as much as we planned. That's the fear I have when we get on this one. And that's my personal opinion, but that really concerns me that we might have that issue come up. I mean, by all means, y'all tell me. And there's no guarantee that wouldn't happen. You could tell me, Andrew, we got it. And you could guarantee me that.
It would be difficult.
It would be difficult. And if the money's not budgeted, we cannot take money from any of these other ones, even if we have it left over, and move it to this.
No, that's unfortunate. That's something I found out that, it's different. School bond elections are completely different from municipal GO bond elections. And the fact that these items have to be separate on the ballot. So a school can put on a ballot that they want to renovate this building, they want to build this building, they want to do a football stadium. And they can kind of roll that in together, and the money is more fluid between projects. It works differently than what we have to deal with as a city.
Go ahead. You mentioned $142 a square foot.
Yes, sir.
Wow. That is cheap. I want
If
to, I
you
don't,
could get it done for that.
no. I'm just sharing with you.
It would be difficult. We'd have to use.
Over at
we'd
Lake
have
Cypress?
to use existing space as it is, put down some new carpet, and
Yeah.
that might be all that area gets. It would
At
be
$142 a square foot. You can't, over at Lake Cypress, we just got back, $210 a square foot.
Yeah. this is
I
baseline.
I don't know how you got that figure, but I need you on my team. Because I'm going to tell you, that's a fabulous price.
I just need you to tell me we can do it for that. But I don't think,
Like you said, there's unforeseens, yes.
Because we've got a deadline of the 18th, how can all these reevaluations, is there time to do all that?
The quicker we can get to work with the bond council and have
That's
them
true.
provide the language and everything, for Mr. Cunningham to finalize his numbers and all, the sooner the better.
I mean, all these, is it possible to have all these things by the deadline?
What's your direction? What do y'all?
I mean, there's been
what do y'all wanna
suggestions
see?
made to
Yeah,
change what was here,
so
so you'd have to go back through and redo everything, correct?
well, Market Street, y'all wanna leave it as is for the voters to vote on, correct? Farmers Market Phase 2, leave it alone, okay? Parking, do we wanna take this out and not have it there, or Ms. Morris, or?
I wish we could look into that.
I think,
Yeah.
That one needs a second thought. I think if we could do it sooner,
I think we ought to leave it up to the voters, put it on the ballot, all the items on the ballot,
I
let
think
the
he's
voters
right.
decide what they want or what they don't want. Because-
Right, so because we're listing all the different items separately, you may have a unanimous vote by the voters to say, yes, we want that parking lot done, and a no on the city hall. So it does.
I have to-
It does. It goes back to the voters.
Let the
What-
voters
what do the
decide.
I mean, I have to
voters
agree with Mr. Hollowell. I think that you put it out there, and what they want, they're going to vote for. What they don't want, they're not going to vote for.
that's true.
And that solves our problem.
But we also have to take in consideration
Considerate? Yes.
that when this is paid for, you're looking at, what was it, 16 million, Mr. Craig? When this bond will be paid in full, it will be at 16 million roughly?
That's principal and interest over 25 years.
Over 25 years.
To do the things to improve which help improve the economic development and prosperity of Winnsboro, it's like taking out a low-interest business loan to get what you need to increase the revenue.
Of your volume.
But I think also we have to make it abundantly clear that this loan will mature at 16 million, and we still have 3 bonds we're currently paying for. And yes, I agree that, it will be up to the voters, but I think they need to be aware of everything going in.
And then this item we got where it's showing what the average homeowner, how much it increases their taxes to do it, and it's not a lot. One of them was like $10 and something a month.
Well, Mr. Craig told us earlier, Mr. Craig, please, would you share if
Point
the-
of order, can we do the financing questions here in the next agenda and go over this real quick?
Okay.
I mean, we've got a section for him to present all this on.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Yeah, because he's gonna go over the handout he gave us.
all right.
Okay.
Y'all wanna discuss that now with Mr. Cunningham?
Well, I've got some points or some comments. I've been up on this desk for a while now. And every time something comes up that's going to be for the betterment of this city, that everybody is getting behind, and we get ready, yes, we want to do that. Yes, we want to do that. Oh, it's going to cost that much? Oh, no, we don't want to do that bad. It takes money to improve a city. If we have to spend $1.9 million to renovate this building, spend it.
It's up to the voters at this point.
I mean, do we
I'm
want to
just going on
spend,
record of what I don't agree with.
do we want to, where are we going to have, we're going to have to buy the land to build a new city building. Then we're going to have to architect that building. So you're looking at anywhere from like Chief said, $4.7 to $9 million for one building.
But you don't know it's gonna cost 1.9 to actually redo these two. Nobody can guarantee that.
There's no set guarantees.
He's gonna say guarantee.
On these buildings, we would do the best we could, we would do as much as we could, as much as we possibly could with the money.
And it still could be less than that 9 million.
Yeah. Or it could go over.
You're right. You are 100% correct.
A little bit of contingency. Oh, I'll tell you what it is for, where's my contingency number? Not for this building, this is for 101. I've got it rolled in with the architect and engineer fees, the contingency, but it's I think it was 34,000, something like that for 101. It's not very much.
Well, the point, another point that could be considered too is breaking that item into two separate issues. One would be what goes on this property.
I was going to mention that as well. The bond council is still looking at it. They're not, because it is city staff, city hall related, you know, because we're all in this building. But there is a possibility that this would have to be two separate projects on the ballot. Don't know that for sure yet, but it's.
They confirmed that before the meeting.
They did? Okay.
Any improvements to that building would have to be.
So it would be two separate issues.
Well, that's a relief to me. As we put it before the voters, that gives them more options, more menu options of what they're willing to get on board with. I'm personally not at all enamored with the 101 North Main building, but I'm perfectly at ease with putting it to the voters and letting them decide. It's not about what I want, it's about what the voters want. So that's good news to me.
Yeah, I agree with Councilman Hollowell and Councilman Corning. I think all of these items should be looked over by our bond council, laid out like they need to be, and put before the voters.
Thank you.
Let the voters decide what's going to be done instead of us sitting here going, well, I don't like that, I don't like this. Let's let the voters decide what they want this city to do.
I'll say, you know, to that, I didn't come up with this list. I'm just here working, trying to put budgets together and get these things built in the future. But, you know, there's people in this community that want, somebody in this community wants everyone doesn't want everything, but some people want this. And so it might be a good idea to take it to the voters. But once again, I can understand your concerns, you know. I have concerns on that last item, you know.
Madam Mayor, may I say? One thing that I wanted to clarify was, if it is separated the way it is between 101 and 501, and they vote yes on 501 and no on 101, it's not just a plumbing, electrical, and facade issue. We're out of room. We're out of space. If they vote yes on 501, we still have way too many people in way too small of a building, and it will solve something for our electrical possibly and stuff, but we're not near up to where we should be in the police department to try to meet even the minimum standards of victim relations and all that right now. So we're still in an issue.
I agree with that.
Okay.
I agree.
Well,
We've got records that are unsecured because of the ground roof on them. You know, they're inside a locked room, but they're not secure.
wasn't there 2,500 square feet upstairs that you were talking about becoming available? So that's a significant addition of square footage. Again, we need to, as best we can, educate the public to what they're voting on and let them decide. I like breaking the options up this way.
It's kind of hard to do, like Catherine said, if one is contingent on the other.
But Mr. Craig just said we have to do it that way. So So what happens in that case? Just curious.
In what case?
That if one's approved and one's not.
You work on the one that was approved.
Reprioritize what you're
That's
gonna
right.
do with the one
Yeah.
and make the best
Number
of
two
it.
moves to number one, and number one is gone. I mean,
But then that 700,000 is gone as well, so now you still only have 1.2 to work
But
with.
that's the way it's worked anyway in the
that's-
budget.
no matter,
So,
it's,
better. I don't have
Do we
any
have
more.
any other questions?
I don't have any more
We've had him up here forever, sorry.
If 501's approved, 101's not, what do you think it would take to gut this building? Because this is a metal building. This is a metal building with,
Where does everybody work when we got the whole building?
you'll have to get construction trailers or temporary trailers out in the parking lot. If 101's not approved. But could we gut the building and relay it back out? Why not?
No, that's not enough money to just gut it like that.
Because if 501's approved and 101's not, that's really the only way to fix this
disagree
building.
with that. There's 2,500 square feet upstairs. That does not mean you have to gut the rest of the building.
Well, you're going to have to take all the HVAC out because it's all upstairs in that area, so you're going to have to make allowances to move that. What
We have
else up there?
about 25, we have 2,500 available square feet upstairs. That's assuming we don't move the mechanical
Mhm.
that's up there, that comes down each side. This is to take space. We've got to move a few electric wires out of the way, but this is the space that we've got contained within an open area upstairs. This is a tricky one. It is.
Yes,
I was
it is.
hoping y'all just have the solution and say, put this on the ballot. It is. It's tricky.
another thing to do.
Jake, I honestly think you've done a good job here. I think a lot of things on here, I personally would hope would pass. I hope they will finish Market Street. I hope they will do the farmer's market. Different things, the roads, of course, the animal shelter. And we appreciate all your work you've done. You've sit here and went through every question and thing I could think of. And we do want you to know that we appreciate everything that you've done. You've answered questions that you didn't want to answer, you could tell. So, and I think ultimately we do have to, one of my big things on the last jail bond was it needed to be put before the citizens. And if that's what the council decides, I'll go with that because the citizens should have the say. There's things I support. There's things that I've never been shy about saying the things I do and the things I don't. Even though I was not favorable on Market Street, I do believe it needs to be finished. It needs to be completed. Phase 2 needs to be completed, and I hope the citizens would agree with that. The farmer's market is great for Winnsboro, and we appreciate all the hard work everybody's put in. You yourself helped build it. I just want you to, I hope you realize that we have to do our due diligence in questioning these things, and by no means does it mean anything on your
No,
character or
that's
anything
what I'm
like
here
that.
for.
I just want you to know
I was
that.
surprised back in the day when we had the CO package proposed last spring that there weren't more of those questions that came out. So I just want y'all, and this is intelligently put together. The only one I have hesitation on is that last item.
That's a big one for
it's
me too.
difficult.
And it's not that I don't want them to have it, it's just,
If it's going to have to go on the agenda as two different items, 1.9 million for both is not going to be enough. You're probably looking at more, probably 1.2 for 101 and more here.
Very, very stripped down budget. Very.
Okay.
So,
I just have concerns on the last one. And it's not that I don't want everybody to have a new facility. I wish we could give them a brand new facility. It's just, I just don't want to get in the middle of something and go, oh, it's not enough money. And then we sit with just half-finished stuff. I don't want that to happen. None of the people that work in those 3 areas deserve that. So, that's why I'm just adamant about the last one, I guess. But we do appreciate you coming forward.
Will y'all please provide some direction so we can continue the process? Like I said, we've got very, very limited time
Right.
if we want to get this on a May ballot. So, yes, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Craig. I appreciate you being pulled in when I asked you and stuff.
No problem. That's what I'm here for. Craig Cunningham with D.A. Davidson and Company. We're financial advisor to the city of Winnsboro. Seen me here before presenting on this very topic and others. I'm not here to make a judgment on what gets included in your list or excluded or the amounts of anything, only to do the various math problems necessary to help facilitate not only your decision, but potentially the decision of the voters of the city. So, you've seen a list of projects put in front of you by Jacob, and that list, as it stands today, is about 10.668 million. And so, what we did to prepare for this meeting was then went back, prepared a scenario of if we issued bonds to fund all of these projects under today's conditions, interest rates as of today, tax base as of today, what would this look like in terms of a tax increase? So, we took this very list, we took it back, and if the voters approved everything on this list as set forth right now, it would be approximately a 22-cent per $100 increase in your tax, in the tax rate. Let me give you a few numbers. You have something in front of you that I provided. On page 1, we illustrate some scenarios. So my assumptions, we are running this at a 4% cost of funds. Right now on the market's 3%, and rates are going up. So I could be back here in a month presenting at 5% when the market's at 4%. Maybe not, but just need you to understand that this is a static analysis based on today's market. Second thing, we've assumed that we're doing a 25-year bond issue, fully amortizing over 25 years. And all these calculations include all the fees and closing costs necessarily to put a bond issue in place. So, if you look at this, I've done 4 different comparisons. The tax rate for the city this year, for those in the audience, is 0.5128, or a little over 50 cents per 100 of your taxable assessed valuation. So, on a home that has a market value of $136,000, that claims exemptions of $25,000, with a taxable value of $111,000, at this year's tax rate, that would be a tax bill of $569 for that house. That's just the city taxes, not the ISD, not any other overlapping jurisdictions. That same home, if all of these passed, it'd be about like I said, a little under 22 cents, or the tax rate would go to 0.7263 from 0.5128. And so on that same house, $136,000 with $25,000 of exemptions and $111,000 taxable value, that would go up to $806, or an increase of $237 for that taxpayer in that home. That's $19.75 a month, or 65 cents a day. I'm going to go down now, and I won't read each one of these. I'm going to go to the very bottom one. And that's a home with an $85,000 market value, $25,000 in exemptions, for a taxable assessed value of $60,500. This year's taxes on that home would be $310. If you passed every proposition that was listed today, it would go to $439, or an increase of $129 a year, 10.77 a month, 35 cents a day. Now, as we look at the list of projects that were put up, I don't know who all has them, I'm going to give you a breakdown of this 21 and a half, 22 cents of what each project would consume. The $1,115,000 Market Street renovation would be about 2.2 cents. So if they just elected that one project, it would only raise it 2.2 cents. Same thing, I'm just going to move along. The Farmers Market Phase 2 would be 1 cent. Parking at Broadway and Walnut is 0.7 of a cent, not even a penny. Animal shelter, 1.9 cents, call it 2 cents. The Civic Center renovation, 0.8 of a cent. Street, 11 cents. There's half of your increase right there in one project, albeit a very necessary one from the sounds of it. And then lastly, down below, the City Hall Police and Improvements. Now, this is aggregate at 4 cents. I haven't done the math on the two breakdowns, but that's about 4 cents. So that all adds up to about 21.6 cents, call it 22 cents. So that gives you an illustration of each project, kind of how much it would add, all totaling to that 22 cents. Another couple of things I wanted to point out before I leave, because I think it's important. This next table, I'm going to show this to the community. Because last year you had a really nice, these are the taxable assessed valuations of the city from 2005 to 2021. Started out, your taxable assessed valuation of the city in 05 was 128 million. Now it's 277 million. You've had quite a growth in your tax base. The one I really want to point out is what's happened between 2020, when your tax base was 204 million, and this year went to 277. That's a big increase. That was 30%.
Yes.
1 year. It's becoming more popular to come down here. Apparently people are relocating here. You can't count on 30% growth every year. But what I did was I went back and I looked at your average growth rate, and over the years it's been in that 3.5–4% growth, average annual growth rate for a number of years. I say that because as your tax base continues to grow, that 22 cents I started with goes down a little bit each year because it's getting spread among a larger group of taxpayers. So I think it's important that this is a great visual, because that's your tax rate, that's your taxable assessed value of the city for the last 17 years. Next one is just your historical tax rate here at the city. Started out in 05, this is just went back to 05, it was 45 cents. This is the total tax rate. M&O, which handles your operations, and INS, which pays debt service. Right now it's at 0.5128. So again, over the years, city's done a great job of managing, keeping that tax rate pretty flat over the years for the community. Last thing on the last page are some surrounding cities that I did. I've got their populations, their their TAVs, and then what their tax rate is for this year. Real quick, I'll run down through them because not everybody here has them. Gladewater, 6,400 people, tax base of 325 million, their tax rate's 0.7515. Gilmer, 5,000 people, 329 million, 0.6256. Atlanta, 5,450 people, 323 million, 0.61. Mount Vernon, 2,500 people, 148 million, 0.60. Chandler, 3,400, 253 million, 0.58. Whitman, 1,900, 150 million, 0.54. Pittsburgh, 4,335. TAB, 276. Tax rate, 0.5285. They're the closest comp you have in terms of size and population. Winnsboro, 3,300, 277. Tax base, 0.5128. And then Mineola, 4,800, 328 million, and they're 4,820. Now, this is your tax rate, Winnsboro, 5128, before you would do anything. So let's just say hypothetically, for the sake of discussion, only thing that got passed was the streets. That's 11 cents. So that would mean your tax rate would go from 0.5128 to 0.6228. Still puts you below Gilmer and a little above Atlanta. They passed everything, you go to about a 0.78, I think is what my number is, or no, 0.22 over 5128, 0.77. So you'd be at the top of that list now. So I'm just trying to give you a sense of what some of your other communities around you have. And they have, I'm sure they have deferred maintenance and other things just like you do that they're wrestling with. So I'm going to leave it at that and answer any questions, but I think the takeaways I'd like you to have, you have some good tax base growth and some good history of your tax base growing. I think Commissioner or Councilman Parrish mentioned earlier about lots in a subdivision that aren't getting any play because the roads aren't done. If you improve your roads, does that improve your economy? I think there could be a correlation there that people could find. Maybe not. But safe to say that if you could drive in and see those lots on nice streets, people will get more excited about them. So I'll end up with your tax base is growing. You have some needs you need to fund. Again, these will all go on the ballot separately. Each individual can yes, yes, no, 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 yes, no, all yes, whatever they like. Happy to answer any questions.
Over on the deal about the average homeowner price, where, do you know where Winnsboro falls in that range?
I want to say, when I looked at this, and I knew somebody's going to ask me that question, I wanted to say it was the 110 value, but I could be wrong on that. But I tell you what I will do, Councilman, is I'll go back and do some research. It's interesting because it's hard to get the values more than you can get things have been selling for. And that's not really the value, as we all know, because we all fight our appraisal district every year on that.
Certainly.
So it's a little misleading. But I would say it's probably in between that 110 and the one right above it. But again, I don't know your community like you do. Another thing I'd say, call more than one election, more than 1 year. That's also, I'm not suggesting you don't need all of this right now, but keep in mind, even if something fails, it may fail for a reason that's germane now, but if it was brought back later, maybe those reasons have been eliminated. So again, just some ideas on that as well.
Thank you, Mr. Gray.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate you staying late.
You bet.
Answering our
My
questions.
pleasure. Love your community.
Any further discussion on 3.3? I'm discussed out, so. Tell me what y'all think.
Well, it seems we have the choice of putting it out for the voters to decide or not to.
I think we're required to now.
I know, no.
Because of the petition, so
Yeah.
let them decide. And this was just a matter of what list to put out.
That and updating the amounts and
Yeah,
looking at
right.
the costs again. So, well done. Thank you.
they put out the whole list for the voters to vote on with the updated numbers.
It's the only thing to do.
I think on the City Hall, on 101 and 501, though, we need to relook at that particular number. If it has to be split, you know,
Yeah.
if it has to be split on the agenda, 101, he has a budget of 771,000
Right.
on it, so.
Mr. Cunningham, how much, I mean, we don't have Parker or Jacqueline, that's our bond counsel on the phone, but how much time do we need if we have everything in place to actually create what we need to call our bond?
I can't speak for them, we can certainly get a hold of them, but I would say it's the 31st today. The nice thing is we've talked to them already, they're already developing the ballot items based on the submission. So, I mean, I think it'd take 24 to 48 hours once you tell them. Now, they may have to work back and forth with my descriptions to make sure they're okay, but
I'm for
I'd
that.
say in that time,
I'm for that.
48-hour time frame, they can turn around the
Yeah.
resolution and the things they need to have ready to go.
And you need what, a couple hours?
No. Well, the good news is the power of computers is wonderful, because if you tell me what the list is, then I can update it. It's a matter of looking at interest rates, making sure the council and everyone here is, comfortable with, again, if we're gonna go out, we're gonna have an election, then we're not gonna issue bonds for probably another 3 or 4 months. And between now and then, interest rates are gonna be moving and costs are gonna be moving, so
That's true.
what we want to do is a little higher interest rate than we clearly think right now, because then when we get to actually issuing bonds, if the interest rate's higher, we still have enough money.
Mr. Cunningham, I know in school bond elections, from the time the election is passed, certified, everything, they have a waiting period before they can issue bond one. They have, I think, 90 days they have to wait. In municipalities, is that the same issue?
I'm not an attorney, so I don't know, Mr. Parrish, but we can find that out for you as well.
Because if it passes,
That's a call then right now.
no, when you can find out.
Okay, you'll canvass the election, but I don't think there's quite the waiting, the contestability period there are with school bonds, but I could be completely wrong on that.
Yeah.
So, let me get that verified for you.
Okay.
Well, our next council meeting is the 8th.
Yes.
which-
That's why I asked that question, is that there's a few things, there's still some uncertainty about a couple items, a couple suggestions. I think if we do have the time, we can come to the council meeting next Tuesday and maybe discuss this, talk to the community, things, tell me some of your ideas for this building and things like that maybe we could adjust. Sounds like we've got the time before that next week, before we would have to officially call the bond election. So I would feel better with a little more input, individually from you, council members.
Jacob, and just verified what you said. She says we still have it on the agenda for you, based on what you just said. Right, Angie? So it will be on your next Tuesday.
As another discussion item,
Discussion action.
And then we can refine the project listing, Like I said, I would like to have some more individual conversations with you all. And then take that and, okay, this is what we want to put in the bond language, and have a meeting that next week to actually have the ordinance to call the election.
I just want to make a statement to some that don't test the earlier when they weren't agreed with. The statement was put out that it was just put it to the voters, and the voters had the decision to make, and blah, blah, blah. That is correct, and that we take that responsibility seriously. But also, on the other hand, it's the council's obligation to give us voters the best possible options to vote on.
And could you just state your name and address just for the records, please?
Second plan, 516 Lynn.
Thank you. Okay.
I have a question of Mr. Rogers. Would it help you if you got a copy of this? I saw you writing feverishly.
I would like a copy of the last item that he presented to you. And I would also request of the council that when you read my editorial this week, please take into consideration it was written at 10 a.m. this morning and not after this council meeting, because there are a couple of sentences in there that may be deemed either inflammatory or prophetic, depending on knowing when this was written. So please know that it was written before this meeting tonight, and I just want you to know that.
Thank you. Angie, could we make sure that they get a copy? Let's go, please.
We are going to put this up for discussion action on the, what is it?
8th.
The 8th of,
No, 8th or
is
10th?
it the 8th
8th.
of February? Next Tuesday. Okay, so we're all in agreement?
Don't forget to be here.
I'll be here. No, I won't be here. Okay, if that's all then, we'll adjourn until the next city council meeting, which will be on Tuesday, the 8th at 5:30. Of course, if anyone wants to put anything on the agenda, please submit or complete a request to be placed on the agenda to the city secretary by 12 p.m. on Monday, 8 days prior to the meeting. The Winnsboro City Council is now adjourned at 7:28 p.m. Thank you.